So Cece decided to, she does not need assistance to get on these couches because this is what her new project is she brought her couch to our big couch and is sliding down it. It's a lovely day in the life of Cece. Mommy's got her black label on. Mama's not playing. Cece, Bella, honey, stop pushing your sister right now or you're going to bed. Bella. I'll get it from her. Stop, I'll get it from her.
In the quiet hours before dawn, when the darkness feels absolute, a small, unassuming town in Colorado became the backdrop for a nightmare that would permanently alter the landscape of modern true crime. Imagine a world where the people you trust most, the pillars of your existence, become the architects of your destruction. The air in Frederick, Colorado, is usually crisp and clean, but in August of 2018, it grew heavy with an unspoken horror. Investigators who had spent decades staring into the abyss of human malice found themselves completely undone by what they discovered at a remote oil site known as Survey 31. It wasn't just the fact of death that shattered them. It was the clinical, incomprehensible precision of how two innocent souls were discarded. 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste were not just victims of a crime. They were the subjects of forensic autopsy findings so profoundly unsettling that the medical examiners who performed them still carry the emotional scars to this day. When seasoned detectives looked at the final reports, the clinical terminology on the pages dissolved into a vivid, terrifying picture of a betrayal so deep it defied the laws of nature. This is the story of a darkness that wore a smile, a father's ultimate betrayal, and the agonizing truths left behind in the quiet silence of an autopsy room. Before the world learned their names under the most horrific circumstances, Bella and Celeste Watts were the absolute center of a vibrant, hopeful universe. Bella, with her soulful eyes and quiet, deeply observant nature, was the kind of big sister who fiercely protected her boundaries but loved with an absolute, uncritical devotion. She was a child of soft laughter and deep curiosity. Celeste, affectionately called Cece, was the complete opposite, a burst of pure, chaotic energy, a tiny force of nature who met the world with a wide, mischievous grin and an indomitable spirit. They lived in a beautiful, sun-drenched home in a suburban neighborhood where lawns were perfectly manicured and children played freely in the streets. To anyone passing by, the Watts family was the definitive blueprint of the American dream. Shannon Watts, their fierce and deeply dedicated mother, documented their lives with a sense of pride that bordered on religion. Through her eyes, the world saw a family thriving, and at the center of Shannon's pride was her husband, Chris Watts. He was portrayed as the ultimate family man, patient, quiet, a hands-on father who would willingly spend hours playing with his daughters, brushing their hair, and tuck them into bed. He was the rock, the silent partner who seemed perfectly content to live in the warmth of his family's bright light, completely dedicated to ensuring his daughters grew up knowing nothing but safety and love. Yet beneath the polished veneer of Facebook videos and perfectly framed family photographs, a subtle, corrosive shift was occurring. It began like a slow leak in the foundation of a house, barely noticeable at first, but devastating over time. Chris Watts, the man praised for his quiet devotion, was undergoing a terrifying psychological metamorphosis. A dangerous, secret life had taken root in the shadows of his mundane routine. He had entered into an intense, consuming extramarital affair with a coworker, an infatuation that rapidly mutated into a desperate obsession for a clean slate, a completely new life unburdened by the responsibilities of a mortgage, a wife, and children. As the summer of 2018 progressed, the red flags began to multiply, though they were easily missed in the chaotic rush of daily life. Chris grew cold, emotionally detached, and physically distant. The man who once looked at his daughters with absolute adoration now seemed to look right through them, as if they were obstacles blocking his path to freedom rather than the flesh and blood he had helped create. Shannon felt the chilling shift acutely, documenting her confusion and heartbreak in agonizing text messages to her friends, desperately trying to understand how the man she loved had suddenly turned into an absolute stranger. She didn't know that the husband she was trying so hard to save her marriage with was already visualizing a world where she and her daughters simply no longer existed. If you are gripped by this deep dive into the darkest corners of true crime, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and turn on all notifications. Your support allows Crime Secrets Exposed to keep bringing you these deep, thoroughly researched investigations. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below as the story unfolds. The illusion of the perfect family didn't just crack, it vanished entirely over the course of a single afternoon. On August 13, 2018, a close friend of the family arrived at the house, alarmed when her texts and knocks went unanswered. Within hours, local police were on the scene conducting a welfare check. When the father arrived home, his demeanor immediately struck seasoned investigators as deeply unusual. As he allowed officers inside, the house was profoundly quiet. The rooms were immaculate, yet a heavy, suffocating tension hung in the air. The mother's purse, keys, and phone, the vital lifelines of her daily routine, were all left behind. As local authorities began their initial sweep, the father stood on the porch, giving media interviews that would soon be analyzed by millions around the world. He pleaded for his family's safe return, but his body language told a completely different story. Rather than showing the frantic, unbridled terror of a parent whose entire world had vanished, he appeared detached, occasionally shifting nervously and forcing uneasy smiles. To the public watching the news, it was baffling. To the detectives watching his every move, it was a glaring red flag that signaled this was not a standard missing persons case. Behind the scenes, the investigation immediately shifted into high gear, transforming from a local search into a massive, multi-agency operation involving the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the FBI. Investigators knew that in the digital age, secrets leave a trail. They immediately sought access to the family's smart home devices, cellular data, and neighborhood security networks. A neighbor's security camera proved to be a critical piece of the puzzle, capturing footage from the early morning hours that directly contradicted the timeline the father had given to the police. The digital net was closing in, setting the stage for an intense interrogation that would ultimately break the case wide open. The atmosphere inside the interrogation room was stifling, a stark contrast to the bright Colorado sun outside. Investigators from the local police, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI sat across from the father, armed with a growing mountain of digital evidence that completely dismantled his timeline. They knew that human memory can be manipulated, but data remains objective. The focus of the interrogation quickly turned to a polygraph examination. Before the test even began, examiners noted the suspect's defensive posture and rapid, shallow breathing. As the specific questions were leveled against him, questions regarding his direct involvement in the disappearance of his family, the physiological readings spiked violently. The machine confirmed what investigators already suspected. The narrative being offered was a complete fabrication. When confronted with the undeniable failure of the lie detector test, the suspect's confident facade completely dissolved. He began to weep, shifting the blame in a desperate attempt to minimize his own actions, but the core admission was finally out. He confessed that his family was dead and provided the exact coordinates of his remote worksite, Survey 31. While teams rushed to the high-security oil field to secure the perimeter, tech specialists were busy extracting data from his personal phone. The digital forensics revealed a long, hidden trail of secret banking applications, hidden photo vaults, and search engine queries that proved this was not a sudden, impulsive act. He had been meticulously researching a new life, calculating how to detach himself from his financial and familial responsibilities for months. Every deleted message and hidden file was meticulously recovered by federal analysts, building an unshakable wall of evidence that would leave the defense with no room to maneuver in a court of law. The legal proceedings moved with a swift, administrative coldness that stood in stark contrast to the emotional weight of the case. Inside the Weld County Courthouse, the air was thick with anticipation as the prosecution prepared to present an overwhelming mountain of evidence. The strategy was clear: to present a narrative so meticulously backed by digital forensics, GPS data, and security footage that any attempt at a defense would be entirely futile. Rather than face a lengthy public trial that would lay bare every detail of his actions, the suspect chose to enter a plea agreement. In exchange for the prosecution removing the death penalty from consideration, he pled guilty to multiple counts of first-degree murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and tampering with a deceased human body. This decision spared the grieving family the agony of a prolonged trial, but it also meant the public would never hear a full courtroom cross-examination. During the sentencing hearing, the judge did not hold back, describing the crimes as perhaps the most cruel and vicious case he had ever overseen. The court sentenced him to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would spend the remainder of his natural life behind bars, completely stripped of the freedom he had so desperately and ruthlessly sought to obtain. The aftermath of the tragedy left an indelible mark on the community of Frederick, Colorado, and resonated deeply with families across the globe. In the wake of the final sentencing, the focus of the public narrative shifted from the technicalities of the criminal investigation to the profound human cost of the crime. For the maternal family, the loss was an unbearable weight. Public statements delivered through legal representatives and family spokespersons expressed a level of grief that words could scarcely capture. They described the victims not as names in a legal brief, but as vibrant, loving individuals whose futures were abruptly stolen. The community rallied around the surviving relatives, organizing candle-lit vigils outside the family home, where hundreds gathered to leave flowers, stuffed animals, and messages of remembrance. The case also sparked a broader national conversation regarding domestic tranquility and the hidden signs of control or isolation within relationships. Advocacy groups and family safety organizations utilized the public details of the case to raise awareness about resources available for individuals experiencing sudden shifts in familial dynamics or emotional distress. Ultimately, the resolution of the case left the public with a haunting reminder of the fragility of trust. The home in Frederick, once a symbol of an idealized life, stood temporarily as a somber monument to the tragedy before eventually being sold, leaving the community to slowly heal from a chapter that forever changed its perception of safety and neighborly quiet. The investigation of this case permanently transformed how digital evidence is utilized in modern criminal justice. In the digital age, a person's movements, communications, and even their physiological responses leave an indelible trail that cannot be easily erased or manipulated. For investigators, the challenge was not just gathering this data, but reconstructing it into a timeline so precise that it left no room for alternative explanations. The integration of smart home technology, cellular tower pings, and GPS tracking from the suspect's work vehicle allowed analysts to build a minute-by-minute account of the days leading up to and following the disappearances. This digital footprint effectively isolated the suspect within his own narrative, exposing the stark contradictions between his spoken statements and the objective data recorded by the devices around him. When presented with this timeline, the constructed alibi fell apart, demonstrating the power of forensic technology in uncovering the truth. Ultimately, this case remains a definitive study in the intersection of public behavioral analysis and cyberforensics. It serves as a stark reminder to the true crime community and law enforcement alike that, while human testimony can be flawed or deceptive, The silent data left behind by modern technology often provides the most unyielding voice for justice. The enduring legacy of this case lies in the profound questions it leaves behind regarding human nature and the masks people wear. For investigators, criminologists, and the public, the true horror was not found in a dark alleyway or a dangerous stranger, but within the familiar confines of a suburban home. It forced an unsettling realization that a person can transition from a seemingly devoted partner and parent to the author of an unspeakable tragedy without outward warning. This narrative challenges the conventional understanding of criminal psychology, presenting a suspect with no prior criminal record, no history of violence, and no obvious indicators of instability. The abruptness of the transformation continues to baffle experts, serving as a chilling reminder that the deepest motivations and darkest impulses can remain entirely hidden beneath a veneer of ordinary normalcy. Ultimately, the story concludes not with answers, but with a haunting reflection on trust, perception, and the fragile boundaries of security. It leaves an indelible mark on the collective consciousness, ensuring that the memory of the innocent lives lost remains a somber focal point for communities striving to understand and prevent such profound fractures in the human bond. The conclusion of this journey brings us back to the quiet, indelible memories of the innocent lives that were lost, leaving behind a community and a world forever changed by the revelation of how fragile our illusions of security can be. As the dust settles on the legal proceedings and the technical timelines, we are left to grapple with the heavy reality of a tragedy that defied explanation, reminding us to cherish the bonds of trust and safety we hold dear in our own lives. If this deep dive into the complexities of justice and the human psyche moved you, please take a moment to support the channel. Hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and turn on all notifications so you never miss an episode of Crime Secrets Exposed. What aspect of this investigation do you find the most unsettling, and how do you think it has changed the way we view modern true crime cases? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation respectful and focused on honoring the memory of those lost. Thank you for watching.